has terrified generations with his dire predictions of doom and destruction. Now at the turn of the millennium, his most apocalyptic prophecies are supposed to come true. But are we really facing the end of the world? Or is Nostradamus a prophet whose time has come and gone?
The city shall be seized by hunger, fire, blood, and plague.
In the mid-16th century, Michel de Nostradamus was a minor celebrity in the French court of Henry II and personal astrologer to Queen Catherine de' Medici. But then in 1555, this self-described wizard and healer published a small book of apocalyptic poetry entitled Centuries, and the legend of Nostradamus was born.
I perceive him as a great master psychic who was trying to warn our time period.
If you examine the actual record of Nostradamus, you'll find that he's so wrong, there's no reason to believe that any of it will come true.
In his book, Nostradamus penned 1,000 four-line poems called quatrains, many of which contain a prediction about the future, a bleak and terrifying future. And with the hindsight of 450 years of history, some scholars insist that Nostradamus has been amazingly accurate. According to Dolores Cannon, the author of a 3-volume Nostradamus compendium, the French astrologer from Lyon has successfully predicted the rise and fall of Napoleon, both world wars, the atom bomb, man's first steps on the moon, as well as countless natural disasters.
We have a huge volume of information and proof because we have translated all the 1,000 quatrains. They are continuing to come true.
If you make thousands of predictions, somewhere along the line you've got to get lucky, one would think.
James Randi has made a career out of being the world's most famous skeptic. His educational foundation is dedicated to debunking paranormal claims like those made by Nostradamus and his followers. The problem, Randi says, is that the French prophet's poems are written in a language no one can translate with absolute accuracy.
His quatrains and his other work was written in a combination of Old French and Latin and Portuguese and Spanish and every imaginable language, I think, in order to make the prophecies quite obscure.
The meanings are unclear in French, very, very unclear, and could be interpreted in any number of ways.
Malina Stefanovska is an associate professor of French literature at UCLA. She believes Nostradamus' followers forced their own interpretations on the quatrains, a process made simple because Nostradamus rarely mentions specific names or dates.
Dates are the hardest things to pinpoint. You must remember, when Nostradamus saw a vision, he didn't see dates in the vision. He said it was all futuristic. It all looked strange to him.
Make it extremely vague, make it difficult to understand, and therefore those who come after you can look back on your writings and can interpret them any way they want.
A prime example of this is the quatrain which begins,
"The Hister will overflow its banks."
Many Nostradamus researchers believe this quatrain accurately predicts the rise of Adolf Hitler.
The predictions on Hitler are very famous because he had an anagram that was almost an exact spelling of the name, Hister, H-I-S-T-E-R. One of the reasons he used the word Hister was trying to show where Hitler was born and raised. The Hister River was in Austria, near where he was born and raised. So you can see this one definitely has come true.
The Hister will overflow its banks. The Nostradamus delight in that one because they say that means that the Nazi hordes would overflow Germany and spread all through Europe, which indeed did happen. But he was talking about the river. It regularly overflowed its banks. It's a statement of fact.
And then there's this controversial quatrain.
"The world is choked by a tangled web."
Again, the language Nostradamus uses is poetic, but vague.
He saw a world with threads and cords all over the world intertwining and mixing together. That was the vision he had of the internet and the World Wide Web.
I don't think that his vision of how people were interconnected was the vision of the internet, because it fitted very well in the medieval vision of astrology, medicine, and the human character.
It's incredible, really, what meaning people can read into the most obscure French poems. The original writings of Nostradamus were far different from what we find on library shelves now. They have changed lines around, they've changed the punctuation, the capitalization, the accents.
Although nearly all of Nostradamus' predictions are open to a wide range of interpretations, in 2 quatrains, the seer of France does go out on a limb.
There are only 2 times in the Nostradamus prophecies of 1,000 that he ever gave an exact date.
7th month, 1999, the great king of terror will descend from the skies.
King of terror, d'effrayeur, does not necessarily mean terror. In fact, it could possibly mean terror, or it could possibly, just as possibly, mean somebody who will stop fear.
I wasn't terribly worried about the July 1999 or 7th month 1999 prediction. I didn't hide under the bed. I didn't take insurance. I didn't sell my property and run off to the mountains.
Dolores Cannon sees in the quatrain a reference to the war in Yugoslavia.
Now, in the quatrain, it says the king of terror will come from the sky. Well, the war happening before was the war in Kosovo. And don't you think they thought the king of terror was coming from the sky with all the bombings?
Remember, there are always references to demons and kings and devils and such coming from the sky. He was apparently afraid that a lot of stuff was going to fall on him. And that could be used to interpret a comet or an atomic explosion or anything like that.
While Cannon realizes that not everyone will accept her interpretations of the quatrains, she hopes that even the most skeptical minds will at least see the writings of Nostradamus as a wake-up call for our generation.
He said, if I show you the most horrible things man can do to himself, will you do something to stop it?
As for James Randi, he believes there's another lesson to be learned from Nostradamus.
And perhaps our species will learn to be a little more sensible, depend more on facts and not on superstitions.